right, letting everyone in to Intro to Photography. Welcome, welcome. I'm speaking in my radio voice. Welcome,
That you
everybody.
are. You got that down, Jolene.
That's right. Welcome, folks, to Intro to Photography with Angie Patterson and McBain Camera. I'm just giving everyone a chance to get their audio and video set up. I will just keep babbling for a minute or so just while everybody is getting hooked up and signed on and all that good stuff. So, welcome. I don't know if you heard me speaking in my sultry radio tone. Uh, welcome to Intro to Photography. I'm joined here with Angie Patterson, and my name is Jolene, and I'm here on behalf of McBain. Um, I'm not going to be doing a whole lot for this workshop other than mostly like behind the scenes tech support, looking up your manuals to help you find things in the menu on your cameras if that arises. Um, but I am just going to do some housekeeping here real quick. Tonight is first and foremost, I just want to say tonight is being recorded. We do record these sessions only for the express review purposes of the attending students. So if you are unable to attend for one class or whatever, you can reach out to me and we'll get you the recording so that you can review it before coming into the next one. But just so you're aware, we are recording. It is going to be listed on a private YouTube channel, so you can't, so it won't be like super shareable, but you can use it for review. Just wanted to cover that real quick. The second thing I wanted to say is because tonight is an educational class, if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to ask them. We want you to come out of this feeling like you have gained something, obviously, been educated. So if you got a burning question, either throw your hand up using one of the reactions on Zoom or throw it into the comments or the chat there, or just shout it out loud, hopefully not interrupting an important sentence that Angie's saying. And I will do my best to make sure if Angie misses it in the midst of teaching her course, that she misses a comment or a question in the chat, I'll make sure that we actually address it before the end of the lesson. Is there anything else I need to cover? Oh, yes. For students attending tonight, Angie has done a wonderful job of collecting her photographic knowledge into a book. It is called Making Photography Easy and Fun.
Yep, that's right,
Sorry,
Jolene.
I
You've
thought I
got
was
it.
gonna mess it up and then I made a thing of it anyway. Okay. Making photography easy and fun. It is for sale at the Mayfield location, the McBain Mayfield location. If you would like to come in, have a look at the book, pick it up, so that you don't have to take as many notes during the class. It is not required, obviously, but you know, it does cover most of the things that we are, well, that and then some of the things that we cover in I think with just more examples and everything. So if you want to use that for reference, please feel free to come by. Also come by and say hi. I work at the Mayfield store as well. So if you're in Edmonton on the West End, come say hello. All right, now I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to hand things over to our instructor tonight, Angie. And welcome. Angie, take her away.
All righty. Thanks a lot for that, Jolene. And welcome, everyone. Thanks for spending your evening with us tonight for week one. So just a brief overview of how this is going to go for you is and kind of what to expect over the 4 weeks. So it'll kind of follow a bit of a similar format, but just the subject matter will be changed. So each week we'll focus on a main theme and with a camera setting, and then it will be interspersed with some hands-on exercises where you get to push some buttons, turn some dials, go take a few photos wherever you are, and gather back for some comments and feedback on how that went for you. And at some point during the evening, usually during the latter part of the evening, then I just go over a collection of a few photos that I've put together and just have some discussion about them. So I'll show you some examples over the 4 weeks of composition and lighting hits every week with photos. and some different kinds of things like what how the composition is, what I may have for a blooper. I like to throw those in as well. I certainly can have my fair share and have had over the years, and I figure they're always a good learning experience. So I will share some of those with you. Let me see what else here. Oh, yes. And then moving forward after this week, so at the end of each class, starting this evening, then within the next, probably the next couple of days, I will send an email to Jeline that she will forward to all of you. And it will just have just a brief overview of the main points that were discovered this evening. And then it will also have just, if you choose to do it, it's not an obligation, but if you choose to, just what we call just a fun photo project. So based on the main concept of the evening, then that will be the photo project for the week. And prior to next Wednesday, so I usually ask for photos by Tuesday, then any of you that wish to do that at any time, and any week, like if you miss the first week, then you're certainly welcome to jump in any weeks you can. So whatever works for you. But is to send, I'll kind of let you know about how many, but generally a couple of photos from the week where if you've had a chance to practice, just email those to me. We'll provide the email address for you. And then I will add those to my photo collection so that you get the opportunity to talk about them. You can share, what the experience was like for you. If you don't have a chance to be out taking photos, then you're also more than welcome just to submit a couple of photos of what you do have. And that could be a combination. It could be, say, a photo that you have a challenge with, and you're just maybe looking for some suggestions as to how to help you out with that. And it could also be a photo that you're really proud of and you would like us to see that, and you'd like to talk about your experience with that. Okay, so that's kind of how the lessons will go. And I like to begin basically the 4 weeks and end the 4 weeks at the last class with a round table. And so I begin with a question for each of you, just in kind of random order, or whoever's willing to volunteer and would like to go first, is what you are hoping or wanting to get out of our time together over the 4 weeks. If you'd like, you can let us know what kind of camera you shoot with. If you have a particular interest in type of photography, whether it's like, landscape or portraits or something that really speaks to you, or, you just have some general questions or things about your camera that you'd like to know more about, then just that would be the opening question. What are you wanting to get out of the 4 weeks? And then, at the end of the 4 weeks, we'll wrap it up with, what's a takeaway that you can take away with you from the 4 weeks. All right, so we will start with that. Once we have that done, we will jump into the course. So is there anyone that would like to, and as Jeline said before we start, any question is fair game. Chances are, if you're thinking of it, someone else has thought of it, or for sure someone else has already asked it, whether with this workshop or I guess it would be a previous workshop. Anything is fair game. We don't want to leave anyone behind. And if for some reason you happen to stump me, probably not Jeline, but if you happen to stump us, then we will make sure that, depending on your question, one of us will get back to you during the week so that you have that answered before we meet the following week.
I
Hi,
just
this is Dawn here.
Sorry, just really quick before we chime in, I do want to just emphasize, Angie said maybe if you want to, but I want to say, please tell me the camera that you're shooting with so that I
Okay.
can better look up the manuals.
Hi. I have a Nikon D5300. I just bought it several months ago to start getting into looking at the DSLRs. I have an old OM1 or OM10 I used to use many, many years ago. And so trying to get to how to use the camera. I'm looking at possibly upgrading, but got to know how to use the camera first before you go look at types of cameras that are out there. I like to do landscape, photography, and travel. I've been a travel agent for 50 something years, so love to take pictures and that of places that I go, show my clients, and put it on my websites.
Cool. All right, that's awesome, Dawn. Thanks for that. All right.
Tom
Um,
here. Can you hear me?
yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can,
Okay,
Tom.
good. I'm trying out a new headset. Didn't know if it worked. I have a D90 that my sister gave me 10 years ago, and I put it on a shelf to collect dust. And so now I've dusted it off, and I'd like to learn how to use all the little bells and whistles. I like nature photography. Um, I've got some extensions, um, tubes for my camera, so I like taking bugs, etc., etc. And I'm
Okay.
looking forward to learning quite a bit.
Awesome. That's great, Tom. Thank you. All
Hi,
right.
my name is Karen, and yeah, I'm pretty green at this. I've got a Canon SL3 Rebel that I got at McBain, and anyways, I'm going to India in March, and I would really like to learn how to use it. My motivation obviously was I didn't want to walk around just with the cell phone because this would be such a great trip. And so I wanted to treat myself by buying a nice camera, and now I have to learn how to use it, and I have no idea. So I'm looking forward to these
All right.
next 4 weeks.
Awesome. Wow, that sounds like that is going to be some kind of trip, Karen. And yes, hopefully by the end of 4 weeks, you're going to be excited about knowing how to use a number of the features and things on your camera so that if you want to whip out your cell phone, you can, but get those great photos with your camera. That's awesome. What a nice treat for yourself. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Karen.
Hi, I'm Lorena. I have a Nikon Z 6 II. I got last year and just love the camera, but of course it's overwhelming with everything that all the features. I have done some portraits with some families that I know, just kind of like getting used to the camera and unfortunately still shooting in the automatic mode. So I definitely need some help in that area and just some hints maybe for lighting. Some of the pictures that I've captured have been really good, but the shadowing has been um, the bane of my existence, as well as there's some issues with clarity with some of the pictures. So I definitely would love to have some help with that too.
All right. So it sounds too like that the opportunity to submit some photos is I'd love to see those so that we can all have a look and see how we can offer some tips for you as to what that lighting does look like or where you're having some issues. So yeah, look forward to seeing what you're taking photos of too with your portraits. That sounds awesome.
Thank you.
And yeah, those new cameras just can be quite daunting and overwhelming. And hopefully we'll just get rid of a lot of that for you through the 4 weeks.
I sure hope so.
Okay, we will do our very best. All right, thank you for that. All right, who would like to jump in? Robin, I see you unmuted.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Robin. I have a Canon Rebel T6, which I think I've had for about 6 or 7 years. I just use it in automatic mode. I just point and click. So would love to learn like all the different gadgets and different features it has. I travel quite a bit. I've been to Europe the last 3 years. The first year I did take it and try to use it as much as I can with my cell phone. The last 2 years I haven't taken it because I'm somebody that just travels with carry-on. So it's just like another bag you gotta carry. So if I
Mhm.
can know all the tips and tricks of all the features, maybe I'll start taking it with me and even take better photos.
Yes. All right. Yeah, make it worth packing that second bag, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, and we will definitely do our best for that, Robin, so that hopefully you'll be excited to pack that along on your next trip.
Yes.
And Robin, you said you're shooting with a Canon T6?
Yeah, a Rebel T6.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Robin.
I think I might be last.
Okay,
I'm,
Allison.
yes. Can you
All
hear me
right.
okay?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Hi, I'm Allison. I have a really old camera, a Nikon D3000 that I don't remember when I bought. It's so long ago. But it looks like it has all the features you're teaching. I got the book and I kind of scanned through it and I'm thinking, okay, I should be all right with that
I think
camera.
so. Yeah.
Okay. And I never really used it over all those years. I've always wanted to, so I'm really starting from the basics too. And
All right.
yeah, I don't know what I like to shoot. I think I like landscapes and also I don't know what you would call it, but life, like being able to just shoot like events and things and people and life. So
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
whatever you
Right.
categorize that as.
Okay. All right. I think you did just fine how you categorize that. So, excuse me. So, Allison, do you have extra lenses with that camera? And so does it have the ability to have a removable lens?
Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. Great. Thank you, Allison. And I think Stacy. We have Stacy, I see unmuted. I think. Okay, just so
Maybe
you
not.
know, yeah, there you go, Stacy.
No, that was Jeline.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah.
All right. Because Stacy, if you can hear us, it looks like you're unmuted. Oh, she thinks her microphone isn't working. If it's not, Stacy, feel free to just pop something into the chat, and Jeline will just let us know what you have written. So while we're giving you, okay, 60D,
Nice.
while we're giving you a minute to do that, then it sounds like, we do have a certain common theme here, going with a number of you using your cameras in automatic setting. And actually, we'll just let Stacy concentrate here and let her do that first, and then I will carry on. And then we'll just make sure we haven't missed anyone.
I think there is one more person present who hasn't.
That's kind of oh, yeah. So I'm seeing Breezy as the name.
Breezy Lucan.
Yes.
Sorry. Hi, my name is actually Brienne. I'm not sure how to
Okay.
change. Sorry about that.
No,
That's
no worries.
okay.
Hi guys. I'm Brienne. I'm brand new to this world. I'm using a Nikon 52. No,
Still in the
Z50.
box. Is it still in the box?
I'm
You've
I
taken
took
it
it
out?
out. I'm very
Oh,
new. It's literally like, how do you turn it on? That's where I'm at. So, but
okay.
I'm looking forward to these next 4 weeks. I'm looking forward to learning how to use it and
Awesome.
yeah.
Oh, this be exciting. Almost feels like I have a new camera. I mean, you've got the box and it looks so new and all right. This will be fun. All right. Thank you,
Asking
Leanne.
Stacy if she can just toss in the chat if she's like, looking for sort of portraiture or mostly, landscape. I was just going to type it out, but I may as well say it out loud. If you want to throw in the chat so we have an idea what you're kind of looking to get out of this as well, while we're continuing on. Sorry to interrupt, just
Hey,
because her
no, you
mic's not
just
working.
go for it, Jeline. Jeline and I will tag team a fair bit. So that's just kind of how we roll. All right. Well, I photo with Nikon D750 these days. Oh, so here we go. So Stacy's letting us know. Okay, looking for more understanding and use of the settings rather than in the automatic setting all the time. Awesome. All right, so I shoot with a Nikon D750. I have an older D600 that was kind of probably the second digital that I purchased. And kind of my journey has been beginning photography. Oh my gosh, probably well, I've liked photography since I was little. So we're going back a long way. But about 24 years ago now, I guess, is kind of when I purchased what I consider my first good camera. It was a film, Pentax film, and took myself off to a couple of workshops in Jasper. And one thing kind of led to another, and it's just been a journey, but I can appreciate the challenges sometimes and the frustrations as much as the excitement and the fun of photography. And, found just some of the concepts so overwhelming in the beginning. It took me a while to understand some of them as well. And what you might find is kind of interesting is, you may hear something or we'll cover something through these 4 weeks, and you're kind of aware of the information, but you might be taking a photo, next year sometime or later this year sometime. And all of a sudden, the dots will really connect. And you'll think, okay, like that's what that was about, or now I get that concept, right? And it's kind of interesting how that can happen with photography. Is just sometimes it's when you least expect it when you get the aha. And so as Jolene had mentioned, every comment is and question is a fair one. You could definitely be helping someone else in the group here by asking your question, or with similar cameras. Like we've had participants where maybe one participant is having a little trouble finding a specific setting on their camera, but someone else has the same kind of camera or similar enough that they'll say, hey, I found it by going here. So feel free to just jump in and be interactive with the group. Jolene mentioned, yeah, if you have a question, just unmute yourself or pop something into chat just at the bottom of the screen there. If you hover over it, you'll see little icons come up, and there'll be the chat, or there's the react. No, is that the one? Chat? Yeah, probably just chat, I guess. Or yeah, just a chat or unmute yourself is fine. So how we'll work this up. So tonight will be more about, it'll kind of be a combination, but it will be about getting your hands on your cameras, finding some of the kind of what I call the basic settings. So discovering how to find them, where they are, what they do for you. And then we'll start with, so the primary theme for tonight will be your camera in the automatic mode. Okay, so this week will be the automatic mode. Then from that will lead into kind of depending on the speed of how the classes go, but with having this many participants as well can sometimes make a difference. So we'll go with what works for everyone as well as a group. Is the idea next week would be one of the semi-automatic modes. And then week 3 would be the second of what I call a semi-automatic mode. And then the 4th week will be going into the manual mode. Okay, so in the automatic mode, your camera is basically taking care of all the details for you. So the second mode next week would be the aperture priority mode. So we'll get into what that is and how it works and what you can do with it. The camera will make one adjustment, and as a photographer, you will also make an adjustment. Then the following week will be shutter speed priority. So that's again will be a different adjustment that you will make, and the camera will also make one on your behalf. And then the last week, when you're in the full manual mode, then it's up to you to make the adjustments for what you're taking photos of and your exposure or the lighting. But I will give you some photo tips so that it's not going to feel as daunting as just thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to use my camera on the manual mode? How does that work? They'll all flow into each other, and you'll be just handling your cameras with all this confidence by week 4 is the plan. All right, so we'll spend not a ton of time, but just a certain amount of time, and the time you need to cover just 3 or 4 of the basic settings and where to go and look for them in your camera. Now, if you are having trouble finding them or you have no idea where to start to find them, as I introduce the concept, then feel free to just unmute yourself and just let us know or pop into the chat. And if need be, then Jeline is our super detective and she is going to help you out with that so that we can make sure that you find the settings that we're talking about and why it can be beneficial just to go and have a look at them and know what they are. Okay, so before we jump in with that, any questions about anything so far? Just feel free to unmute if you have any. If not, we will carry on. All right. So for all of it, so if anyone does not have the viewfinder on your camera, that's an option for you to look through when you're taking photos. Can you just let us know? I think all of you will have, right? Okay, right, Jeline? Okay, so feel free just to unmute and let me know yes or no, or pop into the chat if you have heard of and or you've adjusted what's called the viewfinder diopter. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's absolutely fine because you're about to find out. Okay, so if you look on your camera, so we have, and this is like looking in a mirror. Okay, so right here, right, you've got your viewfinder. And kind of depends on your camera model, but on my particular model, right, hang on, right here, right beside it is like a little wheel. And that little wheel is adjustable. And that is called the, so that's how you adjust for the viewfinder diopter. So if you were to pick up your camera, and so what this does for you is it adjusts so your camera so that when you are looking through your viewfinder, it's adjusting using that little wheel is adjusting it to your eyesight. Okay, it has nothing to do with whether your photos will end up in focus or not. So if you pick something where you can focus on something like some text or something that's relatively easy for your camera to pick up for focus. So if you're not sure, after you've turned your camera on, if you aim it at something, press the shutter button down just halfway, and you might hear your camera lens kind of make a little whirring sound or like it moves. And that's just giving your camera a second or the lens just a second to focus on what you're aiming at. And then you press the shutter button down, or you would, if you were taking a photo, you'd press the shutter button down the rest of the way. So to adjust the viewfinder diopter, if you just aim it at something, press the shutter button down kind of halfway so that you can see that the camera is focusing so that you can actually see what you're looking at clearly. And then move that little wheel and see how the picture changes so that it becomes more kind of adjust to your eyesight, right? So it's not, it may become clearer. If it's already nice and clear, then you may notice that it gets a little blurry. Okay, so the goal is then it's just your adjust, and this is something awesome, Dawn. Thank you. Dawn's got it. And this is the kind of setting that, or feature, once you have this done once, you generally do not need to do it again. Now, you know, if somebody may have their hands on your camera and borrowing the camera and think, oh, what does this do? You know, or they know and they change it to their eyesight, then you might run into just issues where you just simply need to then adjust your viewfinder diopter. But I had a situation one time where I thought there was an issue with my camera. I was doing a hockey shoot way back when, and when I looked through the viewfinder, what I was looking at looked blurry. But when I took photos and then looked on the back of my camera, the LCD screen, they were clear, like they were in focus. And I eventually figured out that somehow, maybe when I put my camera in my bag, took it out of the bag, something, I must have just bumped the viewfinder diopter. And that was what my issue was. I thought it was a focusing problem, and I thought all kinds of things were going wrong, and or my eyesight was going to pot or something, but it was just simply the little viewfinder. Okay. So did everyone make out okay with that? We're all good? Awesome. All right. And just, if anyone who's not on camera, so I can't see you, or even if you are, if you're having issues, just remember, throw up your hand, yell out to us. We want to make sure we don't leave anyone behind. Okay, so that's good. We have that one done. Okay, so oh, yes, go ahead. Brienne, right?
Yes, sorry.
No problem.
Mine is just black.
Oh, okay. This might seem a strange question, but do you have the lens cap off?
The lens cap is off. And
Oh, it
that's
is
not a
off?
strange question. That's where I'm at. I'm glad you asked me that.
So, Brianne, you have a Z50 Mark II. Was that you? Yeah, that was you.
Correct,
Um,
correct.
on the side of your viewfinder box, like the little top hump thing, there should be a little button that has a
Okay,
box and two lines on either side, like on top and bottom of that box. It's the view display option. Like,
okay.
do you see it like on the very side?
I do. I keep getting this message though, and I'm wondering if this has anything to do with it.
What can you just read what it says?
Oh,
It's just
sorry. Yes, it says wireless transmission will continue to suspend. Hold on, it turns off.
oh.
Transmission disable upload while off.
Have you recently connected your phone and your camera at all?
I tried.
Okay. I would turn off the Wi-Fi in the menu of your camera.
Turn
Um,
off the Wi-Fi. Okay.
yeah, and then see if that gets it to shut up on that message. But hopefully,
Okay, so what I'll do just so I don't hold up the class is I'll try that. If it doesn't work, maybe I'll just pop down to McBain tomorrow, just so we're not holding up class.
sure. I don't
Okay.
mind helping you troubleshoot either. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so then, Brianne, because then when you're looking through your camera, what I'm hearing you say is you're just seeing black. You're not seeing what you're looking at.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so feel free to see if from what Jolene suggested, if that works for you. Because then as we move into some of the next steps or when you're taking photos, then you have the advantage where you can actually take some photos and get to see what's going on. Yeah, so don't be concerned about, holding things up or asking questions. Okay, it's we're all here for the same reason, is for everybody just to get as much as they can out of their camera and the course. So it's all good. Okay.
Oh, Angie, it's
Thank
Robin. So you had said that we only have to do that once unless we happen to bump it or notice in taking a picture, but it's like a one-time thing
That's correct.
needs to be
Yes.
done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with, whether your photos will be in focus. If they turn out to be blurry, then that could be a completely, or it will be, other reasons, and we'll cover those as well. So yes, you are right about that.
Okay, thank you.
Agreed, Jolene? Yes. All right. Yeah, I think, I've maybe touched mine like probably twice over all the years. Yep. All right. Great clarity question there, Robin. All right. So here's another question for all of you is if you are familiar with or have heard anything to do with formatting your memory card, or if you have. Okay, so Robin, I see Robin nodding. So have you formatted a card, Robin?
Yeah, and my old camera, I formatted it a long time ago.
Okay. All righty. Okay, and then Brienne, if just you make sure you notice there, Jolene's just popped a comment into the chat for you. Okay, you found it? Okay. All right. So Robin, that's an interesting comment. So you formatted, if I understand correctly, you formatted a card a long time ago?
I think so. Maybe I'm not
Okay.
understanding the question
No,
correctly.
that's okay. You very well could have. So my leading question to that is, since then, if you think that so we'll believe you that you formatted a card a while ago. Have you formatted a card kind of since then or recently, or it was more just kind of a one-time thing?
I think it
Okay.
was the time. Are you talking about the memory card?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yep. Perfect, Robin. We will follow through with that. Thank you. Okay. Tom is saying your card is formatted. Okay. So Tom, for your card being formatted, is that a new card or you formatted it after you've been taking photos on it for a bit?
No, it was formatted, and I actually went to with the format mode one time and forgot that I had about 15 pictures on there. So always check your camera before you format it.
Yes. Good advice. Okay. And let me see. Who was it? Dawn? I think, was that you, Dawn, that said you've also formatted yours? Where is he here? Yes, Dawn. Okay. All right. So what so there's a couple of times, well, actually more than a couple of times. So what formatting does, uh, there's a couple of things that this does for you and why I'm bringing it up. So formatting the memory card. So let's say you have a brand new camera or you have a brand new card, right? Really, it's just you have a brand new card and you pop it into your camera. If you've done nothing with it, then you've proven to yourself that yes, you can take photos and these photos end up on your memory card and away you go. But one thing that you can do is if you buy a new memory card and put it in your camera, before you even take any photos, if you format the memory card, okay, and we'll go through this, if you format the memory card, that will help it's kind of like your card and the camera get talking to each other. Okay, and so it just kind of sets up the memory card to be working with your camera. Now, let's say you've done that and you have or haven't taken any photos and you're out on a travel trip with a friend or family member or something. And in the extreme case, they might say like, hey, I'm out of memory card. Do you have a spare one I can borrow? And you lend them one of your memory cards. So ideally, in that situation, you would want to be giving them an empty card. They would put it in their camera, they would format it so that it's then kind of connecting to their camera. They would take photos. And then when they're all done, when they download their photos, give the card back to you, you would format it in your camera, right? So it's just kind of preparing the card for use in your camera. Okay, so the first time could be then with a brand new card before you take any photos. And then moving forward is formatting, kind of as regularly as you like. So what does that mean? Well, depending on how many photos I might be out taking or come home with on a photo shoot or how often, so you want to make sure that you have your photos saved somewhere first from your card, right? So whether they're back, they're onto your computer, onto an external hard drive, some sort of second storage unit, because when you format your memory card, your photos will disappear. So it's kind of like deleting, but when you just use your camera to delete photos, let's say you've taken some photos and you think, oh, that's a crummy photo. I know I'm not going to want to keep that one. And you just delete it using your little trash can icon in your camera. So over time, then those picture files kind of retain little bits of picture file residue. So I also explained formatting your memory card as a way to help keep your card healthy, help reducing the incidences of it corrupting and crazy things like that. So so I guess to kind of veer back to my question or to my comment is, I will format, like over the course of a year, I will format a number of times. And let me see. sorry, Karen, for you going to India. So one
Yeah.
thing I would suggest then, if you can, is to, or if you choose to, is to format cards before you go. So you know you have a supply, and to have more than one, right? There was a participant in one of the courses one time that said that she travels with depending on the type of trip and how long she's going for, but definitely more than one card in the event that should something horrific happen to one, then you don't lose all of your photos. And also, then I suggest not completely filling your card. You know, the only card I ever, at this point, touch wood, have had corrupt, and I cannot get the photos off it, is one that became completely full. And it just kind of snuck up on me. And yeah, for some reason it just went sideways, and there I still sit. So
Okay.
so formatting when yeah, do you have a comment there? It's Kim, right? Kim?
No, Karen.
Karen, sorry,
Karen,
Karen.
no, I'm just listening. Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
good to have a couple of cards. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So with my long-winded introduction there about formatting your memory cards, we're not, so if you have a memory card with no photos on it, and you would like to format it, then you're welcome to as we go through this. If you have photos on the memory card and they're not backed up or saved somewhere, then we'll go through where you find it and how you would do that step, but you're actually not going to say yes and have it happen. Okay? So depending on your camera models, yes, Allison, you have a question?
Yes. What is the risk if you're not formatting it? Like, I think I heard you say there might be some file corruption. Is that sort
You
of
know,
what can
it
happen?
can happen. I mean, I think Jolene would probably agree with me here, right? Jolene, there are probably hundreds or thousands of photographers out there that haven't had issues, that don't format their memory cards. I guess I don't really know for sure, but
To me, it's kind of
um,
like best practice, like when you properly eject a USB or not. You you don't have to, but you should. It's just like when you get a new memory card, like Angie said, it's basically just giving your camera and your card the same language so they can talk to each other because some cameras are kind of goofy about the folder formatting and older Sony cameras would only write if they had I forget what they used to call it when Sony cameras would initialize or whatever a new memory card. It's just best practice. It's not like Angie said, it's not going to destroy your card or your camera, but you might run into more issues. I don't know. I always format. It's yeah.
the other thing too is if you don't, yeah, I see you have a question there, Robin, too. If you don't, then over time, you're just going, possibly you'll end up with needing to buy more memory cards because your cards are getting full, right? So this way you can just keep reusing the same cards.
So that kind of goes into my question, Angie. Like, is there a limit on how many times you can reformat a memory card to the point where they're like, it's just done? You've got to toss it?
Oh, you know, I haven't run into that with my own experience, but how about you, Jolene?
It's kind of
Maybe if it's getting older too, right? An older card.
yeah, like yes, but there's not like a set
Number.
number. Like it is kind of like any technology, it is gonna wear out eventually. There is gonna be digital decay. Um, there's not a number.
Like,
I
is
mean,
there a
I've
way
had
to
the
tell?
same
Like, is there a
cards.
way to tell? Is it just kind of like by the quality of your picture?
No, because it won't
Mm.
impact that before it corrupts entirely. That's the thing is it's kind of a gamble. Like it's not like you're gonna see issues with the files or the performance of the card before it decides that it's had enough.
Kind of like any technology.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like I've like the cards I use right now, I mean it's been quite some time. Like we're talking years since I've purchased a new memory card. I do use a few different ones. And the other thing I learned kind of the hard way with this card that's corrupt, like I literally waited, it was literally 40 years to see caribou on Highway 40. And that's the card that is corrupt. So yeah. So I've
I
had
tr
that card now, I think, for 3 years in the hopes that one day something magical will happen.
I
But my
tried the
camera,
recovery, Angie. I
yeah,
swear it didn't
I
work.
know you did, Jolene. I know you tried your best. But the crazy thing is well, since then, so my camera, and I'm thinking some of yours, I have two memory card slots. So now I use them. Right. And I'll even have like a big, like a 64 gig card. So a bigger card in one slot and then even a smaller card in the second slot. And I might format the smaller one more often. And then I just use, if you have two card slots, you can choose what the second slot's for. So I just use it as backup. Yeah. Wish I'd done that, but it was a lesson. All righty. So if that's it for questions, just for the moment, we
We
will
did,
jump in. Yeah,
sorry,
sorry, go
we did have
ahead.
another question from Stacy here,
Sure.
asking, is there a particular card brand, size, class that you'd recommend for reliability and longevity? Do you have a good answer for that, Angie?
Oh, well, size can probably just vary with whatever you think, or how many photos you might be taking. Like in the beginning, I was just using 8 GB and 16. And then kind of over time, and I was taking more photos, then now I have a 64, a couple of 64s and a 32, but I still use my 16s and my 8, so though usually more for backup. The brand I usually use is SanDisk. They've always worked well for me, and it actually I think was not a SanDisk that went corrupt. Um, Now the class, that's a good question. Because like there's a speed write, what's called a speed write on your cards. So sometimes let me see. Yeah, like I have a speed rate of 10, like a number 10 when I look on my card. And sometimes, like, am I right, Jolene, that it can depend on kind of what kind of camera you have or the brand or model of your camera as to some cards are more compatible than others. Am I right, Jolene?
It's more about yeah, like, so when you said the speed, like that would be a class 10 card. And now there's like V30, V60. Um, there's all sorts of classifications. I'm just gonna be very blunt about it. The class of the card doesn't actually mean a whole lot. What you want to look at is the read and write speed of the card. Um, so I don't necessarily have a brand that I swear by. I've had good and bad luck with literally every brand of card that I have used. It is just kind of a gamble of whether or not it's gonna crap the bed. So I don't swear by one versus the other. What I like about SanDisk is that they offer recovery software with the purchase of their cards. So you do get that 1 year of coverage for being able to do the recovery yourself, um, which I kind of like, but I also like that our ProMaster cards have a lifetime warranty on them. So yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
you're right. I knew there was that on another brand that I have used too. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and I also like I have Lexar cards that I've been using for 6 years or whatever. So but what you want to look for is the read and write speed of the card, and it's going to be in megabits per second. And that's going to determine how fast the card is going to be able to accept data from the camera and how fast it's going to be able to take that data that it has now accepted from the camera and transfer it to a computer or whatever device. Um, So if you're shooting a lot of 4K video, if you're doing a lot of high-speed shooting, where you're wanting to capture like 30 frames a second, depending on the camera that you're shooting with, make sure you have a high write speed so that your card isn't struggling to keep up with your camera. Like you want at least 100 megabits per second if you're doing high speed shooting. You want probably 200 megabits per second if you're doing 4K video. So just make sure you have a fast enough card to keep up with how fast your camera is going to be writing the information. Now, some of the intro cameras that are like, I mean, if you're shooting with maybe the Z6 Mark II, you would want a fast enough card, but that one's got a CF Express XQD slot, and those cards are innately fast, so you're probably fine regardless of what kind of card you go for. But most of the cameras that y'all are shooting with tonight, it doesn't really matter how fast the card is. Where it comes into play is things like 4K video and super high speed, like sports shooting. But it's not really like if you're looking at V60, class 10, class whatever. Unfortunately, that doesn't always indicate how good the card is. It's just more about it's more about the speed. How many megabits per second can it read and write?
Thanks, Jillian. All righty, so let's go and see if you can find where you go to format your memory card. Okay, and so it will be, we'll start here. If you go, so on the back of your camera, or if you know how to access the menu. Okay, and then you are going, then look for what looks like a little wrench. And that may have the heading Setup Menu. Okay, and then if you right arrow, if you have like the little round toggle with the OK in the middle, then that has little arrows on it, which can take you up or down or left or right. If you hit the right arrow, that will take you over sort of onto the page, so to speak, onto the screen. And then when I happen to go there right at the top on my camera, right up here, oh, it's pretty hard to see, but right up here, it says Format Memory Card. So if I right arrow onto that, it's going to ask me, in this case, which slot. And then it's going to come up with a red exclamation mark and say all images on the memory card will be deleted. Okay, so I'm just not going to touch that. I am just going to tap the shutter button and get myself back out of that. Okay, so the main thing is if you're in menu and then you're looking for the setup menu, the little wrench that says setup menu, and then you are looking, then you right arrow to get yourself onto the page, so to speak, or the screen for setup menu. And then you're going to scroll that screen or those headings until you see Format Memory Card. Okay, so if that's clear as mud or anyone is having trouble getting there, just let us know. So the main thing is, even if if you don't feel comfortable, if you find it, but you don't feel comfortable like going to the next step, hitting that little right arrow or getting to the next screen, then that's okay, right? You could just knowing that you have found it, and then when you have your photos backed up onto your computer or an external hard drive, copied somewhere, then and you're as comfortable as you can be again with technology, then or if you have a brand new card with no photos, then pop that one in and then you could format that, right? But the key is kind of that you know how to find it so that when you want to or you're ready to, you could go ahead and format your memory card. All right, so has anyone at this point found it or not found it? Awesome. All right, so everyone's good then, it looks like. If not, just, oh, right, okay, right on, Brianne. Awesome. All right, good work there.
I did want to just mention really quick, Brienne was able to solve the Wi-Fi. It was doing a weird thing where it was still trying to connect. Because you said you were trying to connect with your phone earlier and the camera was still being a weirdo. I just wanted to throw in there, I told her to remove the battery for 30 seconds and that solved it. So if any of you are having weird behavior, that is like a decent reset for the camera. Just remove the battery, count to 30, pop it back in, and sometimes that helps. That's not a cure-all, but sometimes it can help because they are tiny computers in there, and sometimes you need to turn it off and on again.
Oh, gotta love those easy solutions.
Yeah, heck yeah.
All right. Thanks for helping her out there, Jolene. That was awesome. All right. So one more thing before we get into actually using your cameras is looking at what your cameras are set to for. Now, it may be just one component or two, excuse me, file size and image quality. So the reason that I cover that is depending on the setting of your camera currently, or maybe how it came from the factory, or if you've made any adjustments, then there are different file sizes that you can shoot in. So the larger the picture file that you're choosing, the fewer the number of photos that you can get on your memory card. So conversely, if it's a smaller file, you can get more photos on your card. So you can sort of free up some card room, I guess, if you need it, is a thought. But my thought is, and it's all personal preference, but my suggestion is if you were always shooting on the largest image quality size or the largest image size that is available to you. Now, some of these cameras, right, are getting pretty extreme. So, you may or may not want to go all the way to the top, but the larger the file, the more picture file data you have, the more you can do with that photo. So let's say that just that stunning once in a lifetime photo from India, and you want to create an enlargement or a kind of poster size enlargement. So shooting with a small image file is not necessarily going to give you enough picture file information to be able to do that. So let's say perhaps you want a 16 by 20 or 20 by 24, but if the file size is too small, then maybe an 8 by 10 is going to be the best you can get out of it. Now, that's kind of an extreme on the small size. So let's just find out what all of you have for your file size. So 1 second here. Let's see. Okay, so you are going to start off, I think, yes, by looking in the icon. So again, in your menu, in the shooting menu, which is that little camera icon. Okay, and when you find that menu, then if you right arrow to get yourself kind of over to that screen, or the series of screens, then as you scroll down, you may see, so I actually see three things. I see image quality, image size, and image area. But image quality and image size is kind of what we'll take a look at here. So now image quality, depending on your cameras, you may see options such as JPEG or RAW. Okay, and you may see like JPEG. Different camera manufacturers, I think, call it different things. In Nikon, it would be JPEG basic, normal, or fine. Canon, I believe, is, oh shoot,
I
what's
think they're
Canon?
medium and large.
Yes. So so the difference between RAW and JPEG is RAW kind of relates to, like in the days of film, having a negative. It's kind of like an original file. It's also a large file compared to JPEG. And because it's, okay, thank you, Tom. Because it is kind of like a negative, then those types, the RAW files then need some sort of editing, post-processing editing. JPEGs generally, I mean, you can get away with not unless you want to do some. All right, so first question then, if everyone has made it into the menu, where you find in the shooting menu things such as image quality or image size. Okay, so Tom is telling us he's got a large size and then fine quality, shooting RAW plus a JPEG.
My Canon has like two large, two medium, two smalls, and then it's got like an S2 and an S3, and then a raw, and then my display just disappeared on me. It's got a raw plus a large, and then it's got a raw.
You have lots of choices.
There's a lots of choices. Which one do I select?
All right, I'm turning that one over to Jolene. Jolene looks like she is checking that out for you.
I am sorry. I know that I wanted to be able to tell you what the S stands for. But I know that Canon does their like they'll often show I always think of it as like a little graph next to them where it shows like the tick 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 tick
Yep.
or a smooth line going up.
Yep.
I believe I forget what the S stands for, but I believe it's something like a compressed file so that it gives that how do I describe this? You know how music nerds are like or like audiophiles are like, oh, the vinyl has much more information or it's got all of the sound waves as opposed to a digital file which they've compressed and then they fit into blocks, but there's all that smoothing out where you miss out on some of the data. I don't know if I'm making any sense. Anyway, it's like a compressed, refined file, so it doesn't save as much detail, but it is easier to just use that file without editing, because it's done some of the compression to the highlights and the shadows. If I'm not mistaken, I'm gonna just double check that though. So everyone continue while I.
Yeah, because it's got like a smooth L and then it's kind of got the graph L and then it does the same thing for the medium and like a small.
Yeah,
And
so
then it does an S2 and then it does an S3.
I don't know what.
With the smooth L and then a raw.
Do you
Okay.
have a camera manual, Robin?
Oh, I do. I can
Okay.
refer to it.
Okay. Okay. Because also, I mean, while Jolene is doing her thing there, also I think your camera manual, I believe, would explain, well, sort of as well as some of the manuals explain that make sense for us, what all of those are.
Yeah, I can refer to that. I don't think I've ever read the manual.
So, but are you saying that we should set it up with a JPEG or with RAW or
Well, that's kind of
understand.
sure, that's a personal choice, really. So, for example, for the first number of years, I just shot everything in the largest JPEG file size that my camera allowed. And I did that for a long time. And then I sat on the fence for a few more years, deciding whether I was actually going to jump over and decide to shoot in RAW. So, I mean, I shoot using the RAW file. So here's, I guess, an example. So for myself, I shoot using the RAW file format because I like the nice large file. I don't do a lot of post editing. I use Lightroom, so I can usually just get away with enough for how I edit that I'm okay with the raw file. Because you do need to do some post processing because the raw file, the colors will look kind of dull and kind of lackluster. But if I'm shooting, so for example, I shoot horse racing for one of the camera stores here in the summertime for a couple months. But they don't want those big files. And also, we don't want to be doing a lot of time like for post processing. So then for them, I shoot in the highest JPEG setting in my camera. So I still have a nice large file size, but it's in JPEG. So it's kind of more straightforward and easier to deal with. And I also take photos for my grandchildren's 4-H club, for their achievement days and things, and their sale brochure. So I shoot in JPEG for those as well, especially for their. I shouldn't say that for their sales catalog. I think I shot in RAW. I think I shot in RAW and JPEG, so that I still had some file data that I didn't mind doing some editing for that. But if I were just taking photos, say for 4-H, and then handing them my card out of my camera, I would be shooting in JPEG.
Okay,
So
so like when you say editing, you're meaning that you enhance, like you play with it a bit and enhance color and all that. Is that what you're saying?
yes, because I find like when you shoot in RAW, I find the colors are pretty flat. And so it kind of needs perking up a little,
Oh
so to
yeah, so you
speak.
have to go through all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons as well that I just held off from going to RAW for a long time, was because I don't like to spend time at my computer doing stuff like that. I don't mind sometimes, but I'd much rather be out in the field having fun. So I would say, if you're not sure, to keep it simple, or not simple, but just kind of with less to do after the fact, I might be tempted just to shoot for just in JPEG. But if your camera do you have two camera slots or two
No,
memory card slots?
no, I don't.
Okay, so I think part of it too would be really just what you feel comfortable with.
Mhm.
If kind of learning, shooting in RAW and learning any editing or stuff like that just seems kind of overwhelming, or it's not something you want to mess with right now, then I mean, I don't know, do you agree with me, Jolene? Like, just there's nothing wrong with staying with JPEG
Oh
at
yeah.
all, if that's what you're comfortable with.
Yeah,
I,
and you can still blow them up. Let's
oh
say
yeah.
you
Yeah.
really, yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, just save the largest JPEG that you can on your camera, because unless you're doing editing, like Angie said, it's just taking up space on your memory card. And if you like how the pictures look coming out of your camera, and you don't want to do a whole bunch of uh, color adjusting or boost in the shadows or whatever, then you don't really need to.
Mhm.
I'm the laziest photographer in the world, and all I do with my pictures is put them on Instagram every 2 months or so. Um, so I don't edit any of my pictures, and I just throw them up directly as a JPEG out of camera. I'm not saying I'm a good model to go by, but you don't have to do what you don't want to do.
Oh, okay, I like that. Okay, JPEG it is.
All right. Sounds good.
I just have one quick question, and with the Nikon, there's three different, well, there's more than three different JPEGs, but there's fine, basic, and normal. What is the difference between those that,
It is compression levels, so I would go with fine because that is capturing as much information as that's the highest end. And then basic would be like a medium amount of compression. Yeah, like it's still
okay,
that's the JPEG, right? Like that's your
yeah,
Yeah.
JPEG. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have too, like on my D750 is for JPEG. Yeah, I have basic, normal, and fine.
Yeah, and I
I
mean
shoot in fine if I'm
yeah.
shooting JPEG.
And if you want to shoot in or want to save all of the space on your memory card and you don't need to blow these pictures up and um, you don't really need a big file size, then compress it a bit more and just save the basic, and that's more than enough for social media. But yeah, if you are thinking you might want to make prints, always shoot with fine.
okay, thank you. And on the camera, it has two fines. One has a star beside it, and the other one doesn't.
I
Is there,
think the star is their lossless. What was it? I would shoot in the one without the star.
okay,
Because the one with the star, let me just double check.
okay, thank you.
Righty. Well, Jolene is looking into that for us. Does anyone else have any questions about this file format, file size, quality stuff. All right, looking good here, group. All right, so Dawn and Tom, you were into your file size here and posting in the chat. So did you start off shooting in, so let me see. So Tom, when you first were shooting, did you start off pretty well right with RAW, or did you just dive into JPEG to begin with?
No, sorry, I started off with JPEG for a while, and I like to read. I'm a bit of a sponge, so then I switched over to RAW plus JPEG.
Oh, okay. And
Takes
so
it
then,
takes a little more, takes
mhm.
up a little more space, but I know if I was going to use Lightroom or Photoshop, it's probably better to keep a RAW file so you have more data.
Yeah, and so with your raw files and Tom, so I'm curious and interested then. So with what do you do with your raw files, so to speak? Like, do you do
Oh,
some post editing with
I
them?
save them all to the computer that we're talking on right now as soon as I can, so I don't do the mistake of reformatting after I've got a bunch of pictures. And
Okay.
then at some point, I'll take Photoshop or Lightroom and do something with those.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Good.
eventually.
Yeah. Yes, I know how that can work. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Tom. And how about you, Dawn? What is your experience been with the file sizes that you've been using?
Well, I've been usually using JPEG in the Find. I find that if I'm going to be putting it on social media, I'll use the smaller formats. The for the JPEG Basic because you're not blowing them up. But I always like to have at least a Find, and once in a while, if I see some nice scenery in it that I know it's going to be pretty spectacular, I'll then do the RAW as well.
Ah, okay. Interesting. And
Yeah,
so then with your raw,
I save
okay.
my um, photos onto photo stick,
Oh, okay.
which it's a partitioned flash drive where you can sort out your pictures, and it'll go through and pick out duplicates and all of that right on the stick itself.
Okay. I'm not familiar with that one, but I have heard of it.
Yeah, yeah, it's quite nice because you can put it into different albums. You can make sure that you're not duplicating the same ones.
Hmm.
Like sometimes you download files a couple times and you'll have the same picture that might be sitting there from one file in the computer to another file in the computer. So this is when you're taking it off your computer and you can consolidate it into one file and make more
Ah,
space on your
great.
computer as well.
Okay. Right on. Okay. Thanks, Dawn.
I just want to pop in here, Lorena. I'm glad I looked it up. I was wrong. You want to choose the one with the star, because that one prioritizes image quality over file size. So the one without the star is a smaller file size, but still a high quality JPEG. So it go with the one with the star.
Awesome. Great question there, Lorena. And thanks for your research there, Jolene. All righty, so let's get our hands on the camera now, and we've kind of covered just those beginnings. We'll cover some more things as we go through the weeks, but for now, let's get you taking some photos with your camera. So we'll start off then with this week as to what your camera is doing in the automatic mode. So basically, your camera is, which you've probably figured out if, for those of you in the auto mode or whenever you're in the auto mode, the camera is kind of analyzing the scene, whatever you're aiming your camera at, doing its best to adjust the camera settings for the exposure or what it's seeing in the scene so that you hopefully get a photo that you're happy with. Given that sometimes you might have some highlights or shadows, high areas, light and shadows that you're not super thrilled with, but for for the most part, the camera's kind of doing its best to figure out the scene, figure out the settings, and take photos for you. So three things, primary things that are happening when you think about how the camera's operating and how it's reading the exposure, or how it's taking in all the kind of the colors, the highlights, the shadows, and everything in your photo. And it's all these components together is called or referred to as the exposure triangle. So your camera has a feature, and it's kind of like a setting that we'll dive deeper into, but it is the aperture. Okay, so it's also referred to as the f-stop or the aperture. And the role that the aperture plays is inside your lens, depending on the type of lens that you have, there could be a series of overlapping blades. And sorry, I'm just going to see if I can find a photo here for you. And those overlapping blades open and close depending on the setting of your camera. Whoops, hang on. Sorry, I got to see myself here. Okay. So if you can kind of imagine that this is like looking inside your lens. Okay, so where it opens up, okay, lets in more light. So aperture is about the amount of light coming in through the lens. So in the automatic mode, the camera is controlling this, okay, or it will close it down to like more like these little pinholes. Okay, so if aperture is the amount of light, then the next factor or another factor is the shutter speed. So shutter speed is how long is your camera allowing that light to come in through the lens. So for example, it could be, say, super fast action, and your camera might be shooting at, say, 1/2000th of a second. If you have seen those photos of, blurry waterfalls where the water's kind of soft and feathery looking, or star trails in the night, like where you just get of course they're in the night, star trails that just kind of loop around and just kind of make this circular pattern, that will be a slower shutter speed. So let's say, for example, if 1/2000th of a second is going to capture fast moving action, maybe 1 second will capture a waterfall and blur the water. Okay, so then you've got the aperture that's letting in the certain amount of light, and the shutter speed that's controlling how long that light is coming in for, which simply means how long is your camera taking to take the photo after you press the shutter button. And then the third leg of the corner of the triangle is the ISO. And ISO stands for, oh gosh, what is it? International Standardization Order? No, that's not
International Standards Organization.
Organization, that's
It's
it.
nonsense.
Which really makes no sense. But it is the effect of light hitting, the reaction of light hitting the sensor. But so in a non-technical way, how I describe it is a little bit like having a flashlight for your camera when you need it. So what does that mean? So ISO can work to your advantage. That ISO is like shutter speed, where it has number values. And the higher the ISO number, then that can adjust things like the speed. It can increase your shutter speed. If you decrease the ISO, you could slow down your shutter speed. So rather than getting kind of too overwhelmed with all of that, because in the automatic mode, or the automatic camera setting, the mode, to begin with, we'll just have you go and find those settings. Okay, so just to recognize, what does the aperture look like? So aperture is recorded with a number. So it might be, for example, some may have an F, the letter F, for f-stop in front of it. So it might be F8, might be F11, might be F3.5, 3.5. The shutter speed may be displayed as, say, for example, if it's 1/500th of a second, my camera will show it as a fraction, but some cameras will just show you 500, but that is 1/500th of a second. Now, if you happen to see a number that has like a little quotation mark after it, so perhaps say the number 1 or the number 2 with like a little quotation mark, that's telling you now you're into seconds. Okay, so that would be a slow shutter speed of like 1 second or 2 seconds. Okay, and then the ISO, some cameras just go up in, they double or half. So it could be like 100 to 200, then it would go 200 to 400, 400 to 800, right? 800 to 1600. So it's doubling each time you go up. Or if it's coming down, same thing, 1600 down to 800, down to 400 to 200. Some will have some intermittent numbers. So for example, your camera might show you an ISO of 640. Okay, so rather than kind of thinking, oh my gosh, what does all that mean? Then just to begin with, we'll just think about when your camera's in the automatic mode, it is adjusting the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO for you. Okay, that exposure triangle. So just to begin with, then we'll have you go and see if you can find those numbers. So there's several ways you could do that. One is to aim your camera, hold your camera up as if you were taking a photo, or you can take a photo. You could aim it at, say, a light or well-lit area of wherever you are, and see if, so as you look through the view, if you use the viewfinder, or if you use just the live view or LCD screen on the back, as you move your camera around from light areas to dark areas, see if you can see numbers changing. Now, if you look through the viewfinder, you may see it at, so for example, when I look through the viewfinder and look at the bottom of what I see when I look through the viewfinder, I can see, like right now where I'm pointed, I see the number 20. So that's telling me 1/20th of a second. I see the letter F with an 8 beside it. So that's telling me my aperture is f8. And then my ISO does say ISO 1250. So 1250. So I can see those 3 numbers. So you may or may not be able to see them. If you cannot, then you could always go ahead and just take a photo, and we'll look for them in your playback mode. So the purpose of this exercise is just for you to see if you can find those numbers and see how your camera is changing them depending on where you point your camera, right? If you're pointing it to a bright area, an area that's not so well lit, an even darker area, even brighter area, and just how those numbers are changing. Because, excuse me, because after, as you become familiar with these, this is going to help as we move forward into the different camera modes so that you're going to become just really familiar with what these numbers do, what they mean, and how they can work for you or sometimes work against you. But right now, the key is just to find them and just start to become familiar with what they look like. All right, so if anyone would like to share if you found them, if you didn't find them, and if you did. Okay, so Allison is saying my ISO says auto, should I change it in the settings? Good question there, Allison. Because sometimes when the ISO says auto, that means it's it's just, you may not see the aperture and the shutter speed change as much. So that's a great question where you could change it if you want to a manual setting. So instead of it being in auto, just change it, say, perhaps to 1,000. If you can find the auto setting, change it to 1,000 and then see how that affects things. Just let us know how you make out. Okay, Tom, all okay here. So Tom, I'm taking it then you found the aperture, ISO, and shutter speed setting.
I did, and I found out how to change them all too.
Awesome. Look at you go. All right, right on. All right, how is everyone else making out?
So I find like I can find it. The first number, is that the aperture? 1/60? Is that aperture?
That would be your shutter speed.
Oh, and then F 4.5 is what?
Yep, so that would be your aperture.
Okay. So I find the ISO changes quite a bit, but the other two numbers don't really change.
Okay, and so that's probably then similar as Allison is because if your ISO is changing, then it's in the automatic setting. And so it's just it's affecting the other two to the point where they're not going to change as much. It's like ISO is the leader, I guess, if you will, in this situation.
Yeah, that's the one that keeps changing a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
So and then you said your aperture was 4.5?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we go back here, I will show you. Okay, so if we go back here, then this example of an aperture right here, like right there, is 4. Okay, so then your lens is going to be, relatively wide open at f4, like your 4.5. You're kind of starting to get into the smaller numbers, which is going to open up the lens more, just as a comparison, right? If you had said f16, you'd be, say, for example, back over here in this range somewhere. So you're here kind of down here where it's starting to let more light in.
Okay.
And next week we'll talk more about that aperture opening and how it affects your photos. All right, so how is everyone else doing with finding the aperture, shutter speed and ISO? Okay, Robin, I see you nodding your head. Okay, Brianne's got a thumbs up there. Awesome. So your camera's behaving now for you, Brianne? Good. All
I
right,
think it's the
Stacy.
user.
Well, they are just really quite the cameras these days. It's just, I mean, even with my Nikon D750, I haven't read the whole manual and there's stuff in there that I just haven't even used. It's kind of crazy actually what they pack into those. You'll be
Many
a pro in
bells.
no time.
Yeah. So many bells and whistles. I'm not surprised people get
Oh, I
overwhelmed.
know it's really something, isn't it, Jolene? All right, Stacy, you're doing okay? You can just pop into chat, give us a thumbs up, or let us know how you're doing there. All right.
Thumbs
Okay.
up.
Oh, there's okay, thumbs up. There we go. Good. Thank you, Stacy. All right. So maybe what we'll do, because we've had some variances here with the auto ISO, and we've had at least a couple of you say that. Let's just see, just kind of for the sake of this experiment, let's see if you can find the ISO setting. Okay, so for some of you, on the back of your camera, that may be a designated button so I have a button with a little couple little symbols on it, but it also says ISO beside it, which is like a quick access. And the other way to access ISO is back in through the menu whoops, I am in the wrong one here. Hang on. Raw is back into, I believe your shooting. Yes, your shooting menu, the little camera icon. And if you go into that little shooting icon, you may need, once you right arrow over into your menu, you may need to then arrow down. And so that you kind of change screens and look for something that says something like ISO sensitivity settings. Okay, and then if you right arrow to access that, you may need to do that twice. And then you'll come up with some numbers, right? So example, my ISO right now is at 1250, but I could go to 1,000, I could go up to 2,500, I could go down to 400. So just see if all of you would like to see if you can find where your ISO setting is. And if it's on the auto, you could change it. Like say maybe choose 1,000, then your photos maybe, or you could go 800 if you like, experiment with that one. So to do that, you would just arrow to the number that you want, that you choose, and then just hit OK on that little button on the back of your camera. Okay, and then once you've done that, you can even just kind of tap your shutter button to get yourself back out of the menu.
So,
And sorry, go ahead.
okay, I got a ISO button, so I just press it, but it just says vivid, soft. Like it doesn't really give me a number. It's giving me all these pictures like cool green.
No, no.
No, am I in the wrong thing?
Okay, that's interesting. So maybe Jolene can think about that one. But what you could do in the meantime is just go in through the menu and just see if you can find it in the menu. And then when you're in the menu, just look for you want to be in the shooting menu, so that little camera icon. And then when you find that, just hit your right arrow to get yourself over into that screen. And then up arrow or down arrow and look for ISO sensitivity setting.
Yeah, I mean, I tried that. I don't even have that as a selection. I'm in the shooting settings. I got image quality, review, release shutter, flash control.
Karen, what mode are you shooting in? Is it just in regular automatic on the top mode dial?
Yeah, it's that green button, right? That's
Yeah.
automatic.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just do some reading here.
Okay, we'll have Jolene see what she can figure out there. Yeah, so if for the rest of you, if some of you were shooting and you discovered your ISO and it was a fixed number, then you could always change it if you like, go higher or lower with it, and then just kind of repeat the exercise. Who is it? Dawn is saying, okay, green
So
auto.
put it
Uh,
in the P. Okay.
okay. Okay, so you're in the P setting now, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and then
So, uh-huh.
are you going in through the menu option?
Yeah, okay.
Now you found it?
Yeah, if I'm in P, I can do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
Alrighty.
Don.
It
Thank you,
looks
Dawn.
like ISO might be disabled while it's in automatic.
Yeah, it must be because so now that I'm in P, I can see it.
Okay. Yeah, and actually that's a good point. Thanks for jumping in there too with that, Dawn. And Jolene is, yeah, some modes that you're in, the camera won't, as we're finding out here, right? The camera won't let you adjust certain settings. It doesn't maybe happen a lot, but there'd just be a few little quirky ones like this ISO. All right. So, does anyone have any questions about? I don't know this was just kind of a quick introduction, but into what your camera is doing in the automatic mode, right? Kind of the key point is that if you've been able to find and identify the number that's the aperture, the number that's the shutter speed, and the number that's the ISO. Those would be kind of the three takeaways from moving your camera around and just looking at what's going on. So everyone's pretty good with that? Okay, awesome. All right. So actually, Jolene, maybe what we will do is we'll pick up some more stuff here in a minute, but we'll just see if I can ace this screen share. And
I believe in you.
all right, sometimes it's quirky for me. We will just, I'll show you some photos here and some examples of things. And then we will carry on with a few more photo tips here for you and for what will be coming up in the following week. All right, so we will hit a screen share.
I'm going to tell you guys, we do this class pretty frequently, and every time we want to do the screen share, it operates under different rules. I'm not kidding you. I
Yeah,
see a big picture of a bird. It worked this time on the
perfect,
first try.
Jolene. It's like it doesn't matter how many times we practice this, right?
No, you got it this time.
All right, good-o. All right, so we'll kind of get into some little bit of composition, some lighting things. So kind of lighting and composition kind of, is always a factor. So this was actually a photo up at Mount Edith Cavell in Jasper, my very first workshop. And I remember just being, first of all, so incredibly excited that I actually managed to photo this bird. It was back in the days of film, so we kind of had to wait to see what it would look like. And the first thing that the instructor pointed out was, well, yes, that's all very nice, but you have it smack in the middle of the photo or the middle of the frame. So that was kind of my introduction to, oh, well, thinking about where do I place my subject in the frame. So here we can kind of see, well, he's in the middle, and at least I got the focus anyway on the bird. But it could be determined that if you look at kind of what's considered the rule of thirds or guidelines or suggestions for thirds, it would just be as if you were playing X's and O's on this screen. And the idea being that it's not a hard and fast rule or even a rule, but just kind of a composition suggestion. Rule just seems a bit extreme because it can always be subjective to what you like. But keeping the subject away from dead center like this, right? So that it would close in more on this side. This left side would have more room because the bird in this case is looking kind of off to the left here. Same here, right? Is just in the middle. And here we really can't even see the bird's face. So one thing I did after I started paying more attention to composition is I went back and I looked through a number of my photos. And I mean, because they were film, it was just haul out the photo albums and have a look. And in a way, it surprised me, in a way it didn't, but I lost count of the number of photos where, whether it was birds, whether it was, my children when they were little, like on vacation, the primary subject was smack in the middle. And then it just kind of got me thinking, well, where else could I put it? Okay, so here's an example of, a different type of framing, right? It's filling the frame. The bird's got it's still fairly close up, but it's got a little bit of room to move here. But there's not this big gap on the right-hand side with all this, extra space that's just putting it right in the middle. And one thing here as well is it's kind of an overcast, bright, cloudy day. So we're getting some nice even lighting on the bird. Okay, so that's like when I take these horse racing photos, I absolutely love bright, cloudy days because then I know if I have it's kind of like the clouds diffuse or soften the sun, then I'm not going to get extremes of shadows and highlights on those horses. It's going to be just like this bird, it's going to be some nice, even lighting. All right, so kind of composition could be as close to you as bird feeders or, if you have pets, family members. So kind of one idea of a composition, but then, if you move in closer. Now, ideally, right, I don't really like this here on the right-hand side. But again, it's just, way back when. So some of these are pretty old photos. Just practicing with a different look, different composition, thinking, what could I do with that? Or what could I do with something I might see fairly regularly, through my day or through my week. And in the beginning, it was just once I started getting into bird photography, then I just found it really exciting just to even be able to capture a bird. And then after a while, it's like, well, now, I want to challenge myself. So now what can I do? So then it's like, well, let's see if we can get it doing something, right? So even if it's just waiting for it to sing, and capturing the song. So just looking for some action of whatever action and kind of interaction of whatever your subject is. And same here, just looking at some action. Now, when we look here, this is the sun is just starting to go down here. We're starting to get almost kind of that beautiful golden light at sunset. So there's still enough light, but it's not as harsh as what it was, say if this had been a couple of hours earlier. You can see here, I mean, in this one bird on the left, there's a little bit of a highlight here that's almost a little distracting, or, definitely brighter. We've got here is a little bit more in the shade, but some softer light. But again, just had the opportunity that they were in the trees and just looking for where they are, who's doing what, how can I capture some action, and what is the light doing that I can work with. Right, and sometimes it doesn't work. So this is an overexposed photo. And it happened, I just came out of a local park, and my camera was set in the manual mode for what I was photographing there, and didn't stop long enough to think about what I'd been doing and what if I saw something else, which I did, and just ended up with a few completely overexposed photos before this little daffer just followed its mom around the corner into the bush. So as far as exposure goes, here we're looking at overexposed would be the term, where it's just blown out, lots of highlights here, far too bright. All right, this one, I mean, it's not as dark as it could be for underexposed, but this is where we can see that, we've got some different lighting going on from the clouds. So here with the trees, in comparison to the fawn, we almost have some underexposed here. Okay, so underexposure being too dark. And really, in a way, I mean, it was kind of stormy and everything like that, but it's really a bit too dark for my preference. Probably my favorite part would be the clouds, because they've got some different color in them. And you can see here on the right on the water, there's, little hint of some sunset light there. And now the next scene as well, it's kind of the same place, different time of day, but there is kind of an expression, or with landscape photo, about introducing the human element. So this picture would be, I mean, this is not a stellar picture by any imagination, but it could be something as simple as this, putting in the human element, or these two chairs. Okay, so you think about, here really we have a scene of the lake and the mountains and a storm, and you pop in a couple chairs, and this is kind of sort of a hint, I guess, at the human element. I mean, there's a lot of things that don't work here for me. I mean, we've got this fence, and, we've got trees blocking and things, but it was something that I rebelled against for a long time. After I heard about it, saw photos of it, and I thought, I don't want to be sort of, at that time, I thought of it as ruining my landscape photos with the human element. And over time, I just kind of softened my stand on that and conceded that, okay, there is some merit to that, to adding a human element. So just something to think about and ponder kind of as you practice taking photos and learn more, is just introducing, or even just thinking about the human element. Do you even like it, or do you even not? Again, it will be personal choice. And again, well, I shouldn't say again, here we have just the morning golden light to the morning sunrise. And just so before the sun has just become too high in the sky and it's just kind of bright, we've got shadows and highlights. Right here, we've got kind of some highlights, but it's softer golden light. You could almost say over here where this path goes, that you have a little bit of a leading line. So a leading line, if a person gets looking through the photo, is just kind of, is there something like a pathway, a line? If you think about kind of walking down or looking down railroad tracks, leading line at the tracks heading off into the horizon, a pathway leading, say, over to the Cleskin Hills here, as just leading lines, places for the viewer's eyes to go, and some nice soft light. Just some composition compared to the birds is here we have, the moose off to the one side, and this kind of the expression of room to move, for them to move through the photo, right? So there's a bit of breathing room here. They're not, they're kind of centered, but they're not smack in the middle, because we don't have as much gap over here as we have here. And they're kind of looking into the image, into the scene to us. Okay, and there's a photographer that I first heard about, Brian Patterson, who said, he was the first person I heard say it, and he would say, when do you take a vertical photo or a landscape? So you have vertical or horizontal, or portrait or landscape. So portrait can be interchangeable kind of with vertical, and horizontal like this can be interchangeable with the word landscape for the orientation. So he would say, well, you take one right after the other. So this is just, example is just playing around with some different viewpoints and composition one day. So it's like, here's the horizontal, not quite in the same place, but here's the vertical. So you can see kind of in this case where, I feel it chops it off here. I would like to know what's around that corner. I like the light here, but I would still like to know what's around here. So this is almost kind of a composition example of it sort of jamming up, and there's nowhere necessarily for the viewer's eyes to go once you've kind of looked around here at a few little things. Right, and again, just a little bit of composition and lighting. So something as simple as, so here, if you think about landscape, I had a lot of landscape photos where the horizon line, so that would be, say, considered this line, would be closer up here, right smack through the middle of the photo. Now, there are definitely times when that can work, but if you follow kind of the rule or the guidelines of thirds, it would suggest that if I wanted to portray the storm, then which it kind of is here, is 2/3 of the frame, and this would be 1/3. But the difference I find between this one and this one is, the storm was pretty cool. I find that I find the road distracting here, but I prefer more 1/3 here to 2/3 here. And if I look at this one, then I prefer this one with the fact that I don't have the distraction of the road, but I probably would have wanted a little bit more of something to fill some of this space here. So I maybe would have maybe gone closer, filled the frame more with the field, so that I could have had more canola up here. Or, perhaps it would have worked too if the clouds had been lower or something, would have been in here. But just kind of, some
Angie,
examples. Yeah, go ahead.
Tom here. To me, and this is why it's subjective, the road finishes your story. How did I get here?
Ah,
So
okay.
I like that one. And you still got, it looks like you're still, you've got three horizontal bands there, one with the land, one with dark sky, and one with clouds. So
True.
that
Yeah,
works for
right.
me.
All
We kind
right.
of,
Well, thanks, Tom.
I actually kind of agree with Tom on that one.
Agree with Tom?
Yeah.
High
Well,
Yeah,
five.
same, Tom. I agree. I like this one better. I like having the road in there to
well,
break up the it breaks up the color.
yeah, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Because kind of as I was talking to you, and it's like the more I'm looking at this one, it's like, oh, maybe I don't like that one as much. But thanks for
You
leading that
were,
off, Tom.
well, I think if you had your canola band, the yellow, wider, so it was actually the bottom third of the photo, it might work better. But still, this one here tells a story. Oh, this is how I got here, and this is how I'm walking down the road. So
Yeah,
that's why I like that one.
yeah. Thanks for jumping in there, Tom, and for your other comments. Appreciate that. All right, and here's just another kind of rule of thirds. Okay, a sunrise at the lake, just kind of, kind of the bottom third here and the top third, or sorry, two thirds. So it's just kind of thinking, which do I want it even, right? Kind of like how, Tom and some of you have pointed out with that canola photo with the road, or when it's just say kind of the lake and the sky, then which one do I want to be focused on? More of the sky, more of the lake, or interchange them, mix it up and take photos both ways. And if you want to, just take photos with a horizon line right through the middle as well. And see how you like that one too. This one was like this is kind of one of my personal favorites for the winter look that it has to it. But for a leading line idea, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, perhaps over here on the left, so that I find I just kind of like the frost and things. That I can look through here, but then it's almost like I'd kind of like to want to know what's down here. What do you think, Tom? Or anyone else?
Yeah, I think you kicked it there, Angie.
Right. And it's interesting, sometimes that, and if you very likely experience it as well, and I'll very likely continue to experience it is, I get home and it's like, oh, I could have done this, or spent a little bit more time just thinking of composition and looking around and, not necessarily, sometimes it's just, well, let's hurry on to the next spot. And it's not always about let's hurry on to the next spot, right? It's just take the time in the spot you're in with digital. I mean, it's so great with digital because you can just keep composing and clicking. All right, and this one is just because it is winter and we've warmed up considerably again. But if you find that in the cold weather, when you come in from outdoors, then cameras can get condensation on them really quickly. And so one of the things that I have found that has worked well for me is before I come in the house or put my camera into a warm vehicle, or, if it's relatively warm or whatever, is I put it in a Ziploc bag, squeeze all the air out of it as best as I can, seal it in a Ziploc bag, seal it in the camera bag, and then which the camera bag, like if I'm outdoors or somewhere, I'll have the bag outside with me as well. So the idea being that you reduce the impact of the camera going from a cold environment immediately into a warmer environment. And then it can really help reduce condensation gathering on your lens, your camera, which over time, if you do that too often could really start to cause some havoc. So I'll seal it up, put it in the back of my vehicle, farthest away from the heat. When I come inside, when I shot those Bohemian waxwings, the two together, it was pretty cold that day. So I put my camera in the bag, and then I even took it down into the basement into a cooler area and just left it down there. And it sometimes it's just hard to be patient and leave it alone and let it warm up. But uh, I have not had condensation issues when I pay attention and do this. I got caught one year. It was really cold. And hang on, I'll just stop my share here. And I'd been taking photos outside of sleigh rides, and there was a heated cabin. And before I could even think fast enough, I just crossed the threshold of the door, and just instantly, my camera, my lens, everything was covered in condensation. So then yeah, that's about it, Jolene. So I actually just went back outside and left it out on the porch because I thought, like, the deck, because I thought there's no way I want it to be in this extreme fireplace heat, just going from bad to worse. So from my own experience has been, I have had really good luck with the bag. All right, how are we here? 8:55. Okay, so let me just have a quick look here. So before I maybe just wrap up here with just a couple of quick things, does anyone have any questions before we almost wrap? Yes, go ahead.
What about taking your camera from warm to cold?
So say, for example, like from in the house and then going out in the cold weather for photos. I've not had an issue with that. I've found it's coming the other way.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Good thought, though. Good question. I've heard of issues too where people going to hot, humid climates. I
Mm,
can't speak on that myself from experience, but I have heard people say like the same, that kind of that bag idea works. But well, I don't know. I've heard people say too that it can be a challenge. I'm thinking almost maybe dealing with the cold is easier than the hot and humid. So I don't have personal experience to share with that, I'm afraid. All right, so what will happen, as I mentioned, next week is I'll get an email to Jolene. Jolene will send it out to you. And so the exercise for the week, if you have time and would like to do it, is just to be having fun with your camera, taking photos in the automatic mode. Okay, and then just looking at the numbers, becoming more familiar with the aperture, the shutter speed, and the ISO. And what happens if you're shooting in, well-lit areas, darker areas, if you have a chance even to be outside, even if it's, just in your front yard, your backyard, somewhere at different times of the day, or just even observing through the day, what is the light doing today? Like I can be at my kitchen window and not even see the sun, and I know that there's a sunrise that's bringing me some beautiful golden light on the trees across the easement. So that's kind of like that beautiful golden light. And then, you get the bright, overcast, cloudy days where you can see detail, and you don't have the harshness of the sun. So even just kind of seeing what you might have outside around where you live and how it changes, or at work, looking out through the window at work if you can, and just seeing how the light changes and makes things look different. Okay, and then next week, so in the email, there will be a suggestion just to prepare for aperture priority. But in case you happen to miss the email, is just if you have just a few objects with you that you can be prepared to line up, like on a table, or pull a chair over or something. So it could be things like coffee mugs. If you have games, it could be some dice or some playing pieces like chess or something. And one of the things we'll experiment in the aperture priority mode next week will be how you can affect how you photo those and what the background looks like. Okay, so we'll expand on the aperture priority for that, and for some what it does and some creativity. right. Now are we? Okay, so I guess we're probably just about rolling to 9 here. So if
Tom did
anyone
ask
has
in the chat if we should have a tripod.
it's not a have to or a necessity for any of the assignments, but if you would like to, or if you have one and you want to use it, that's perfectly fine. If you don't, do you have one? Let me see.
I
Okay.
do. I have a tabletop one and a bean bag.
Oh, okay, sure. So yeah, if you would like to use it, then Tom, feel free to use it. But it's not like it's something that you would need to rush out and buy one for this course if you don't have one. Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Tom.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so thanks again for joining us. We'll get more hands on your cameras and pushing buttons and turning dials next week. And if you're working through the week and there's something that you're experimenting with and it's not going quite as easily or as well as you had hoped or planned, at any time, please reach out to me or Jolene, and we'll let you know how you can reach us in the email so that we can help you so that you're not stuck through the week. Okay, and then then you'll have an opportunity to submit a couple of photos if you want from a photo shoot if you've had it, or a couple of anything that you would like to send to us, and that'll just kind of be noted in the email too. But just know if you want to think about that and what you'd like to submit, you'll have that opportunity. All right. So I guess on that note, you are welcome, Tom. Thanks everyone for your time this evening, and look forward to seeing your photos and hearing how everyone is done through the week, or if you have any pressing questions for next week. Yep, see all the
Thank,
messages in chat. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
You
Thanks,
are
folks.
very welcome. Great job, everyone.
We'll
Thanks
see you
for
next
being
week.
here, and we'll see you next week.